opening, grand closing. Welcome, my friends, my family, my fellow gamers. Your only friend, these YouTube streets. Waterrock77 back at you with another video. Let's talk PlayStation. If you haven't got the hint now, if you have not got the hints now, let me show you something. Let me show you guys something. Yeah? Yep. HellDivers 2 officially announced for the Xbox Series X and S. No, that's not a Photoshop. That's the real thing. And if you look on the bottom right of the screen, PlayStation Studios, Arrowhead, and Nix's. Nix's helped with the port. PlayStation first-party studio designed to port games to other platforms has now cracked the ice importing games to Xbox. Now, how can I begin this conversation? You know what? I'm gonna start this conversation off with a little bit of help. I'm gonna kick it off with my good friend Extreme. Oh yeah, let's listen to what my buddy had to say.
It's been a while since I've done this. Hey, listen, in light of the recent news that PlayStation is going to take their games to Xbox with the HellDivers 2, right? At least to begin with, I would like to announce proudly that the PlayStation 5, okay, over there, see, oh my goodness, look at that beautiful console. The PlayStation 5 is going to be my last PlayStation console. That's it. From this point on, this will be my last console. I'm not sure if I'm going to get the PlayStation 5 Pro just to kind of give you that last hooray, but even if I do, that's going to be much later down the line. This will be my last console. Listen, I don't care what anybody says. I don't care how much business sense this might make. I don't care about the time of this or that or, oh my God, it's been a year. I don't give a fuck. What I give a fuck about is exclusivity. Because when you create a hardware platform, I need to believe and trust that the games you're going to make yourself are going to take full advantage of the specifications and the capabilities you have built into that box. If you are now a third-party developer, and that's what they are, a third-party publisher now, then you have no obligation, or rather, you have the obligation to make sure that every single project that you greenlight is going to be able to run on all available platforms. That's what's going to happen, right? So listen, I didn't buy a PlayStation to have a third-party box. No, I could have stuck with my PC. I already had a PC. I didn't buy a PlayStation to be stuck to the level of performance or creative capability of an Xbox Series S. If I had wanted a Series S, I would have bought the Series S. But I didn't because that didn't interest me. But now the games that PlayStation is going to be making are going to have to run on the Xbox Series S. That is a downgrade of epic proportions. And you know what? Forget about the fact that this is live service. What makes you think that single player is sacred? Single player will be put on Xbox too. Listen, it is what it is. This will be my last PlayStation. Thank you, Herman Holtz. Thank you, Hiroki Totoki. Thank you all for fucking up the brand. Well done. Fuck off. It's been a while since.
All right, now listen. Right now, let me see if I could get back to me. Right now, you guys, a lot of you are focusing on the wrong thing. You're all right now are focusing on how he's acting.
Hey, listen, in light of the recent...
Wait. You got your bars. You got your bars. Right now, you're focusing on, oh, he's overreacting. Oh, he's a fanboy. You know, you guys right now are not listening to the word he says, and his words that he said, I have said repeatedly on this channel. And I'm going to say it in a more calm voice so you can understand. If a company decides to make a console, they are responsible for bringing out the best of what that console can do. Whatever features, technologies, bespoke, capabilities, anything that's unique to the console that the company says, hey, we want to build this console in a specific manner to do specific things and have the capability to do things. They are the ones, the creators of the console are the ones to bring that to light. You cannot do that to the fullest extent, right? All right. When you also have to consider other hardware that you didn't design as part of your specification, right? What you have to do in the condition, and this is what third-party manufacturers do, they find a middle ground with their games. They don't maximize hardware. They generally create a game, right, that is up to a certain level that all the platforms that game is made for can run. Some platforms will be better than others, the game, simply because of the raw strength of the game itself. Of the platform itself. But the game will not max out any device. It will not be optimized for any specific device. It's going to cater to the devices that is running on. This is not a good strategy. I ain't gonna say good strategy. This doesn't help. This strategy does no good for the consumer who bought a console. First party. Third party is one thing, right? Whether it's EA, Capcom, whoever, all the third parties. Because they didn't sell you a specific piece of hardware to play their games. They're not promising you that they're going to max out any hardware that you decide to buy. They're not responsible for that. The one who made the hardware, they're the ones responsible to say, hey, we made this hardware is capable of doing things. We are going to show you what those things are with our games. Because the developers that work for us, they're only focusing on that one job. They're focusing on that job to bring out the very best this console can do. With having a multi-platform strategy, yes, for the company, they can make money for that game, right? They spend money on the game. They try to sell that game to as much audience, to biggest audience possible. But with that game that they're catering to a massive audience on other platforms, they are not catering to the very audience that bought their platform. So let's say, for example, I'll use Marathon, right? It's going to be made for Xbox, PlayStation, and PC. Despite Sony owning Bungie is not giving any direct benefits to the PlayStation fan base, even though they are owned by Sony. And Sony owns the PlayStation console. Because Bungie is focusing on making a good game, runs good on the Xbox Series S, Xbox Series X, PlayStation 5, PlayStation 5 Pro, and various configurations of PC. They'll have the minimum spec PC, minimum spec CPU, minimum spec GPU, right? And they're going to balance all those configurations into a well-running game. But the actual PlayStation console owner, a console made by Sony, who Sony owns Bungie, that PlayStation console owner will not get any benefits. They're going to get a well-run game that works on every device. They will not get a game that maximizes the potential of what the PS5 can do, maximizes the potential of what the PS5 Pro can do. Definitely not even that. They'll get PS5 Pro enhancements, but it won't be maxed out because they can't. They can't max it out. Because let's say if they try to max out the PS5 Pro, that would cause issues for the Xbox Series S. It will cause real big issues. I think PS5 and Xbox Series X might be fine, but the Series S will really be SOL. They can't do that. And a lot of the weaker PCs, the minimum spec PCs, they would have a problem too. And that's what Extreme is talking about. And I told them this. I think when he first came onto the podcast, I told them, as Sony how would you say, as Sony, does more with their PC ports and whatever strategy, we could see a world where they could just make games good enough, but not truly realize their own hardware, right? I'm gonna show you my video I made on the PlayStation business segment, part 3, the fireside chat. And I think out of the 3 business segments, part 3 was the one that had the lowest views of the 3. Even though they're pretty good, 2.5K views, right, for my channel. The other ones I think were seen more, which means a lot of you may not have seen this specific conversation. So I want you to listen to this, right? I shared a concern I had. I want you to listen. Now, what you're going to hear is the moderator. The moderator is all the way to the right, this guy with the glasses. He asks him a question, and he mentions that Hiroki Totoki changed the goal of the PlayStation first party studio from being a studio that is a platform provider and marketing tool for the consoles. He changed that goal, that mindset, into now a studio driven on profitability. Now, listen to this.
Move to the studio business. Totoki-san has said that the role of the PlayStation Studios has changed from that of a platform enabler and marketing tool to a profit growth driver. What?
I want to go back and listen to that. Listen to what he described, okay? It's important. Now, that's not me talking like right now. That's me talking as I'm reviewing the video, okay? That's why, man, I really sound like garbage. Now I see what you guys are talking about. But anyway, listen to what I said, okay? You're going to hear what I said, okay? I'm going to play it again, right? But, well, you can hear the clarity now, so you know the difference. And I talked about this on a podcast yesterday, right? But listen to what he says carefully.
So now I'd like to move to the studio business. Totoki-san has said that the role of the PlayStation Studios has changed from that of a platform enabler and marketing tool to a profit growth driver. What has changed to increase profits?
So Totoki-san's the CEO of Sony now, and he said that, hey, the PlayStation Studio business now changed. They went from platform enabler to a marketing tool to now a profit, business, right? I have concerns with that. Now, I get it, business, you have to make money. What I'm concerned about is the methodology, the mindset that they have now. Yoshida said when he's with Sony and throughout his time in Sony had this philosophy that you would make 10 games. Out of the 10 games, 4 or so would fail, 3 would be decent, and 3 would be bangers. And the reason why you have this system is because you really don't know what's going to be the banger. You don't know the 4 that's going to fail. You don't know the 3 that's going to do okay. And you definitely don't know the 3 that's just going to be the breakout hits. All you can do is generally be like, all right, make the game. Okay, make the game. Make the game. This is going to make PlayStation look good. This is going to get people to buy PlayStations. Some games did okay. Some games, not so much. Some games ended up being phenoms. For example, Yoshida told the story when he was in the PS1. They said, hey, we're going to make Gran Turismo, a racing game, whatever. And he's like, oh, okay, whatever. He said it did not dawn on him that that game will end up selling like 14 million. Not even close. Nobody predicted that. That was like, the game didn't look like that type of game that would just be attracted, hit those numbers, them 10 plus million, right? And he says he will see that all the time, right? And then some games that they thought like, oh man, this is gonna be great, just didn't hit, right? But they had like a system where they accepted 10 games, some will be successful, some would fail, and some will be breakout gen defining hits. You can't do that now with Totoki saying no. The PlayStation Studio business must be profitable. That means every game must be profitable. Every game must be made for profitability. So, what metrics are they using? I think they'll talk about it a little bit, but the methodology for them to greenlight games changed, right? It's not the same as they're willing to risk failure for the sake of creating games because you never know if the game is really going to fail or if it's really going to be a hit. But, we'll see what Herman says right now. All right. With that said, right? With this announcement, HellDivers 2 going to Xbox, I will tell you the number one catalyst and reason for this. And it is not the damage control that you're seeing. You're already seeing damage control from PlayStation, which is pretty weird because I'm going to say this, man. Some of the PlayStation guys are weirder than Xbox fanboys. And the only reason why I say that is because we literally see how silly Xbox gamers look, damage controlling for Xbox. We see them look stupid trying to damage control the obvious. But then some PlayStation guys are repeating the very thing we make fun of, which doesn't make sense. Like when you make fun of an Xbox guy for doing something, then you go do the very same thing. And what I mean by that is you have guys already damage controlling this, right? Let me show you, give you an example. I'll give you an example, right? Let me give you an example, right? This is literally an example. Let me, I'm gonna scroll this and I'm gonna find an example for you. Hold on. Sorry I didn't have it ready, but this is just one example of like, what are you talking about? Okay, it's like, for example, here we go. This is one example. You know, I made this tweet and I said, I'm gonna help the ponies out, right? Because it's mostly, you know, the fanboys doing this. I said, don't compare HellDivers 2 with MLB and Marathon. Don't do it. MLB The Show and Marathon are on Xbox because of obligations. They had to go. MLB had to go due to MLB requirements to retain the license, and Marathon and all future new games had to go as part of the acquisition agreement of Bungie remaking. I said remaining or multiplat. I put remaking, but it's supposed to be remaining as a multiplat developer. MLB had to go to Xbox because MLB wants their IP, which is Major League Baseball, to be everywhere. They were the only big pro sports that was not on every device. Basketball was, football was, soccer was, hockey, MMA, everybody was on everywhere. MLB was only exclusive to PlayStation. So they didn't want that no more. So Sony chose to fine. We'll put games on more platforms because they want to keep the license. Because they literally had a studio dedicated for that. That's all they did, San Diego Studios. Okay. Marathon and all future Bungie games are going to Xbox because that was the agreement. The acquisition stated that in order to acquire Bungie agreed to be acquired by Sony, but Sony had agreed that Bungie remains a multi-plat developer. Sony said, fine. Any game you make, you decide what platforms you go on. Okay, so that's how it is. HellDivers is an IP owned by PlayStation. The port, right, getting the game ported onto Xbox, Nix's, which is a Sony-owned studio, helped Arrowhead do it. But let me show you where it gets funny, you know, with the PlayStation guys. We got Tripster. He said, not owned by Sony, though. Same as Death Stranding. Why all the fuss about a game by a studio not owned by a studio, okay? All right? Here's the thing, though, right? He literally argued when people told him HellDivers was coming to Xbox or whatever, you know, he put Lego isn't owned by Sony. HellDivers IP is fully owned by Sony. Try again. So when people use Lego as a case study to say that, you know, HellDivers could come to Xbox or stuff like that, he argued that Lego isn't owned by Sony, hence why he went to Nintendo. But HellDivers IP is fully owned by Sony. You see what I'm saying? That's what's already started, right? So you already see like a little bit of damage control. And another big damage control that's using is it's not a Sony first party studio, right? Arrowhead. But again, let me show you Nix's Twitter account. HellDivers reinforcements are arriving. We're excited to bring HellDivers 2 to Xbox Series X and S hand in hand with our friends at Arrowhead, game studios. Gear up and embark on your mission to save Super Earth. Report for duty. So a PlayStation-owned studio helped with the port. And here's the key. Here's the thing. Nix's now knows how to make, or they probably already did, but you see them already flipping a game on Xbox. Extreme made a good point. What makes single-player games safe from this strategy? Let's go back to, I think HellDivers is on Xbox. Clearly, the easy answer is make more money. But why make more money on Xbox? It's because their live service strategy failed. A while ago, people asked me, do I ever see the day that Sony would go day and day, like across the board, like do exactly what Microsoft does. Every single game, every title, everything, day and date on PC. Like you can't tell the difference between a PC and PlayStation apart because it's all there. Full support, right? And I said the day that happens is when the console's failing. The strategy is failing. Then they have no choice but to put everything everywhere, right? This is semi what happened. Sony's live service strategy is in a disaster. It's disastrous, right? Because the only success that they created since implementing and pushing live service this gen is literally HellDivers. If Sony didn't have a live service strategy, they still would have made MLB The Show and Gran Turismo 7. So while those games are like live service, whatever, they would have came out anyway, because Gran Turismo is a long story franchise with multiplayer. Hell, we had GT Sport, and that's a live service game, right? And MLB The Show had all the live service features last gen, and PlayStation wasn't talking about live service during the PS4 gen, so they were already there. HellDivers 2 is one of those new, even though there was an original game, but the direction they took HellDivers 2 was clearly with live service in mind. Concord, Fair Games, and all these other games that, they canceled. The God of War live service, multiple games they canceled. Marathon's now delayed, right? Literally, they bought Bungie because of the live service strategy, right? Fair Games delayed, right? Or something pushed to 2026 with Jade Raymond not even being part of the company anymore. The live service strategy is failing bad, and HellDivers by itself is not enough to make up for the losses within the live service strategy. Now, while Sony's trying to get things going with new games, they feel future games might be more successful. What do you do in the meantime to make up the losses of these other live service titles, right? So they're going to take the one game that's successful and put it on Xbox. Now, here's the thing. We've seen this step before. Not in terms of correcting failure, but with PlayStation testing the water. Remember, it was almost 5 years ago, in 2020, Sony put Horizon Zero Dawn on PC natively. Game was 3 years old by the time it went on PC. And everybody was saying, this is a 3-year-old game. It's just one game. If Sony decides to put other games, it's going to be 3-4 years old, whatever. We fast forward today, Sony has released games, reported games within 1 year. A lot faster than the 3-4 year wait. They added live service, PC. They added PC to the live service strategy, day and date. And now they're pushing day and date games that we didn't think they were. Like single player games like Lost Soul Aside and Tokon Fighting Souls. Now, while Fighting Souls you could say is a live service game, it is a fighter. That could have been timed exclusive as a fighter. But no, it's day and date on PC as a fighter. So we're seeing Sony, since Horizon Zero Dawn, 4 years, the what they did in 2020, they started with a game that was 3 years old. You see how far along they came to this point now. And now they cracked new ground. And their one and only successful live service game is now on Xbox. And there is no obligation. There is nothing. So this, you can't say, people are trying to say that because Sony doesn't own Arrowhead, that is they're the ones deciding. Bullshit. Because Arrowhead definitely doesn't control Nix's, right? And this is a Sony-owned IP. Sony owns this IP. Sony made this decision. Let me show you something. Let me show you this. Show you this. So that way we could, you know, right now. This man right here. This dude right here. This is PlayStation Satya Nadella. He doesn't care about the PlayStation brand in the way that we want him to care. He doesn't. He doesn't. I'm not saying he wants the PlayStation console to go away like Satya Nadella, but he definitely doesn't have the, how would you say, he doesn't look at things such as they got to create games to make the console look good. You know, they got to create software to make the console look good. No, his mind is you got to create software that's profitable. He doesn't care about the game being a marketing tool to make the PlayStation brand look valuable, look good. You know, in his mind, he probably thinks the console's an automatic seller and that it's all about how much money you make off the individual software. That's why, you know, in the PlayStation business segment, he changed what the goal of the first party is. It's not like a platform enhancer and marketing tool for the console. The studios must make profit for each game. You know, the old Sony, the Sony before him, some games didn't make a lot of money, but the mind share of the game was really important to the brand. So that way people will always talk about how PlayStation has games, right? And it's that mind share conversation. Like I'll put it to you right now. I know we all have friends. We all do. We all have that friend that don't even play, you know, the first party or the exclusives much. They mostly play Call of Duty, Madden, 2K, Football Club, you know, Grand Theft Auto, things like that, right? They might have one or two first party games, like the real big ones, like the God of War and Spider-Man, right? Maybe Gran Turismo. But they don't buy every single exclusive. They definitely don't buy Returnal. They don't buy Rift Apart like Ratchet and Clank. You know what I mean? They don't got Demon Souls. So you know those guys, right? Like if they buy a PlayStation exclusive, it's like one of the big guns, right? The God of Wars, the Spider-Man. But if it's not one of those, that's it. They're not buying it, right? They mostly play third party. They're mostly on that Call of Duty. They're on that Fortnite, Apex, right? And all these games are on Xbox, all of them. The games they put in the most hours, those games are on Xbox. And yet, when you talk to them about PlayStation, they'd be like, yo, PlayStation got all the games. Yo, Xbox sucks. These guys will tell you Xbox is garbage, even though they're putting in the most hours in games that are on Xbox. If they own their Xbox, nothing would change for them. They will put the same amount of hours in Call of Duty, the same amount of hours in Grand Theft Auto, the same amount of hours in Apex Legends and Fortnite. Nothing would change. It's the same games. But in their mind, Xbox is garbage. Why? Because of the mind share of PlayStation have. You know, the mind share of PlayStation having games even extends to people who don't even buy those games. They just know, because everybody's saying it, that PlayStation has the games, even though they're not the ones buying it. But they know they own the brand that has the games, even though the games they're playing is on Xbox. So they think Xbox has no games, that is trash, while primarily playing 2K and Call of Duty. Or they're playing Apex and Madden or Football Club. The same games that's on Xbox. But in their mind, that mind share that Sony created, you know, with exclusives, right? And they just hear people talk about them, you know, conversations, podcasts, forums, whatever venue that PlayStation's talked about, somebody's talking about the PlayStation exclusives, and that vitriol just goes everywhere and even permeates the fan base that don't even play them. But they hear it so much that they're like, yeah, I got the console for all the games, even though they're primarily playing Call of Duty or Madden. But they're still going to say Xbox sucks, even though Xbox has those games day one as well. You see what I'm saying? So it's that mind share of the PlayStation exclusive. But Totoki, that dude, is not about that life, right? And that's why I brought up the concern. But who would have known that it's I should have guessed it, right? Because by the time that fireside chat happened, the decision was already done. The decision of Sony making PlayStation first party, not worry about being a marketing tool for the console or a platform provider for the console and going straight profit, that decision was already done like a year or two ago. So this port of HellDivers going to Xbox was done at least a year ago, right? Which is crazy because they're putting in energy porting games to Xbox. Meanwhile, some of the studios had to shut down games for PlayStation, like Sony Bend and Bluepoint. And listen, I don't even let me bring something here. Let me show you this. Like this right here is wild. Right? I didn't catch it at first until I saw Extreme say something. So shout out to Extreme again. Look at Naughty Dog's Neil Druckmann. He delivered this message 2 days ago, yesterday or 2 days ago. He said, to our Naughty Dog community, we wanted to let you know that studio head Neil Druckmann delivered the following message to our team this morning. This is what Neil Druckmann said. I made the difficult decision to step away from my creative involvement in The Last of Us on HBO. With work complete on season 2 and before any meaningful work starts on season 3, now is the right time for me to transition my complete focus to Naughty Dog and his future projects, including writing and directing our exciting next game, Intergalactic: The Heretic Prophet, along with my responsibilities as studio head and head of creative. Co-creating the show has been a career highlight. It's been an honor to work alongside Craig Mazin to executive produce, direct, and write on the last 2 seasons. I'm deeply thankful for the thoughtful approach and dedication the talented cast and crew took to adapting The Last of Us Part 1 and the continued adaptation of The Last of Us Part 2. So now, in general, I was excited. I did a tweet. I'm like, it's about time. Yeah, get back to work. But then Extreme made a tweet, and I don't know how I didn't catch this, but it's right there staring in front of us. I'm going to read it again. He said, now is the right time for me to transition my complete focus to Naughty Dog and its future projects. Now here's the crazy, which I didn't catch, including writing and directing our exciting next game, Intergalactic: The Heretic Prophet. You're telling me you're now going to get involved with writing and directing Intergalactic now in 2025? Like now you're writing and directing. Now, because he released this message yesterday or 2 days ago. So you're telling me July 2025, now you're going to be involved in the writing and directing. That means there's still stuff they got to record, mocap, they got to get the actors, actresses. There's still stuff to write. Yo, this game ain't coming out till like 2028 or some shit. Like, bro, now you're involved in the writing and directing of the game. Now you're going to put your focus now in July 2025. Now you're focusing on Heretic. So was that just a small vertical slice that we saw? Bro. So while now Druckmann's getting involved in Intergalactic Heretic Prophet, Nixix was already porting HellDivers. Now I know one studio have nothing to do with the other. I get that, so I'm not blaming Naughty Dog for the port of HellDivers. I'm looking at Totoki. Totoki's the head dog. He's giving guidance to the head studios of PlayStation, Herman Holtz and the other guy. but more Herman Holtz because he's in charge of the first party. And like, what the hell's going on? How are we prioritizing HellDivers to Xbox and we still now Druckmann's involved in writing for an actual game for PlayStation? Hiroki Totoki, bro, is our Satya. And I would say Herman Holtz is our Phil Spencer. Maybe not as bad as Phil Spencer, but Hiroki Totoki is definitely not that dude, right? So I'm gonna say this to all of the PlayStation guys: if you want to come up with move goalposts or damage control, I have to ask you why. Why are you gonna try to downplay this? Because I already seen the downplaying. Arrowhead's not owned by Sony, but then like 5 months ago, you were claiming HellDivers was a first-party game because Sony owned it. But now it's not a Sony first-party game because it's on Xbox. What? Like, is it a first-party game or not, right? Then you say, well, it's a live service game because it needs a lot of audience, but I could have sworn nobody was talking like that a year ago or even a few weeks ago. Nobody was thinking about putting this game on Xbox simply because to get more people. And I'm telling you, just like how Horizon Zero Dawn went to PC, it was 3 years old. Look how far we come from that. The same thing is going to happen with HellDivers. It's going to go on Xbox. It's going to have moderate success. And they're not going to see no blowback. They're not going to see anything. They're not going to see any negativity. Console wars, whatever, but real world negativity, they're not going to see nothing. Hiroki Totoki is going to like what he sees, and he's going to demand more. The CEO of Sony will demand more of PlayStation first party, and he's going to, I'm telling you, Spider-Man's going to go to Xbox. Because Hiroki Totoki sees money in having that game be made on Xbox. He's going to do it. All that talk Herman Holtz did about differentiator, throw that crap away. Totoki is going to look at HellDivers. Going to be partially successful, right? I don't think it's going to break out like the way PlayStation and PC did, but it's going to do good enough. It's going to bring in that extra coin. And Hiroki Totoki is going to ask, why isn't Spider-Man on Xbox? And nobody's going to have an answer. Nobody in the PlayStation is going to push back. They are not. Herman Holtz is not going to push back. The other guy is not going to push back. Nobody's pushing back. You can't push back. Totoki is going to bring up God of War, Spider-Man eventually on Xbox. He's going to bring that up because he's going to see opportunity on making more money on easy ports, especially if Nixon says, yeah, they can do the ports and it's pretty easy. They could get those games on Xbox within a year like that with very little money, port money. Port money is cheap. It's not a lot. Don't think porting costs like 20 million, 30 million. It's not that much. Porting games is not that much. Ports are not a lot of money. Ports like Sony could port, Nixon could port a game over to Xbox, and if it sells like 1.5 million, they made money. They printed money. That's how cheap ports are. So Totoki, listen, it's a wrap, bro. I advise you guys, don't stick your neck out for Totoki. He's not gonna do what you want him to do. He doesn't look at PlayStation the way we looked at PlayStation, right? And I said this in Extreme. You saw his video, whatever. If PlayStation continues down this road, effectively, the PlayStation consoles is a generic device. It is not a device built to take advantage the software that Sony develops because they're focusing on the hardware. Sony first party would be more focused on making sure the games work on multiple devices, thus handicapping the very console they created, because they have to focus and make sure the games run on every device to make that money. So now the first party and the hardware is not really in sync, right? Because the hardware we created and the first party would take advantage of it. All the bells and whistles. You really can't do that as a multi-platform developer. You just can't. It just doesn't work that way. So effectively, consoles that PlayStation would make would eventually be generic devices, like devices that just runs the game, but there's nothing special about the device, right? They didn't maximize it. They didn't maximize the full extent of the technologies, because the game is also available on others. Like, for example, HellDivers is on Series S, so clearly they didn't max out the PS5 if the game's going to run on the Series S. It's just not, right? So, in the world of generic devices, where all the devices run all the games, which is the best device out of the group? And that's PC. PC is the best generic device. It's the best device that doesn't get optimized. Doesn't, right? You don't need to, because now you have the options of buying the hardware you want to brute force the performance levels that you want. PlayStation, you won't be able to brute force anything. You get what you get. And if they don't optimize the game to fully take advantage of the PS5, then whatever the performance they do provide you, that's what you're stuck with. You can't get more out of it because they didn't do it, and you can't do it yourself. But on PC, you can do it yourself. You get the frame rates, the resolution, the settings, you know, the ray tracing, whatever. Whatever PC has to offer, you can do it. You just have to pay for it, right? And generally, it could be expensive. It could be really expensive. But in a world of generic devices, PC is the best generic device. In a world of multi-platform devices where games are on everything, PC ends up being the better device. That's just how it is. I think what 2025, there's potential that when the next gen starts, it could start with Sony saying games are day and date on PC. It could start that way. It'll be interesting to see how the gen starts, to see if they keep with the timed exclusives, right? But here's my thing. Sony's been real light from their first party. So how long before, like say with the PlayStation 6, with PlayStation 6, especially with Sony taking their time making first party games, right? And the games they make second party and stuff like that go day and date on PC, live service on PC day and date. How valuable or how worthwhile is a PlayStation 6 when the exclusives or the timed exclusives takes forever to make and there's hardly any? Sony's taking their sweet time doing that stuff. And the games they do make, like live service, is on PC. Some second party, third party exclusive titles also day and date on PC. So you get most of it. You get a good decent amount of games that are on PC. The select few that aren't on PC is coming few and far between, right? So what value, like how does a generic device, if the PlayStation 6 is a generic device, how good would it look? You know, that's going to be interesting. That's going to be real interesting. I'll go forward, but I don't think HellDivers is a one-off. I think it's just a start. Sony putting more games on Xbox because it's all about the first-party studio profitability and no longer about the marketing and the platform push for the console. But you let me know what you think. This is your only friend, these YouTube Street Porter Rock 77, and I'll be back with another video. But enjoyed this one. And then also check out my 60 Frames Don't Like podcast. And then tomorrow, check me out. Oh, wait. Tomorrow's 4th of July. Tomorrow is 4th of July. Lord. What am I going to do? I'm not going anywhere. We're having neighbors in a barbecue cookout. But I might stay tuned for my live. I have to check out with next gen, because what was supposed to happen is my Friday night live tomorrow at 8:30 p.m. Eastern. But the thing is, it's 4th of July. We may have to either do the show earlier. I'll see. I'll reach out. I'll keep you guys informed. We might try to do the show earlier because of the 4th of July celebration, or we might just cancel it. But stay tuned on that. Anyway, you guys take care. Peace.
Grand opening, grand closing.